Good afternoon. How you guys doing?
So how do
You guys kick it off there.
how do you start scoring more points?
How to start scoring more points? Just execution overall. I think came out here, had 2 great days of practice so far this week, where guys were tuned in, locked in, and ready to go, and excited to get to this Falcons game and get going again this weekend.
What do you got to do to get more, big passing plays going?
Yeah, I think one thing, as we play efficiently throughout the course of games, just seeing what the defense gives us and trusting it, and we had a few that popped in that first game, and then we had some opportunities this past game that we missed on, and whether it's penalties or different things that occur throughout the course of the game, just focused on better execution down in and down out, and starting with me as getting the guys in the right positions to make plays, and then when those opportunities present themselves, Geno's done a tremendous job of really getting through progressions and finding the read and delivering the ball.
You talked about the trust in Geno, what he's shown you guys, and not holding back. And what have you seen out of Geno this past 2 years?
Yeah, just really just to echo what I had said last week about him throughout the course of training camp. Where his practice preparation was so good. He was playing at a high level. Really understood all the concepts that were going. Has such a good understanding of defensive football, and then the ability to get in and out of plays. So I think Geno's just continuing to do what he's shown us that he can do, and like I said, can't wait to see him again this Sunday competing.
Shane, all those short passes, are those Geno Smith taking what the defense is showing him, or are you calling those per se because of what the defense is showing?
I think the answer to that would be just depending on which one that happened. Different plays.
Have the preponderance been called, or has it been as the play happens?
Really just different levels to the passing game. There's a couple I can think of off the top of my head, like we referenced the first week with Colby getting the big play over the top on really what's more an underneath throw right there, and then the defense it popped that way for him. And then I can think of different ones where, like, Tyler got one in the San Fran game that went underneath on the check down because they played it a little bit deep to short on DK. So I just think it's a lot of that has been Geno having such a good feel of taking what the defense gives us and playing that way. And like we said, we're going to continue to look for some of those catch and run opportunities or those throws down the field as they're presented.
Was that Tyler when you talking about the 3rd and 11?
There was one of those was on a 3rd and 11 there where we're a little short of the chains there. Have a chance potentially for a catch and run, and then there was another one on the right sideline there where we got a little high-low on that towards the end of the game where Tyler took an easy completion there.
And those are saying the product of Geno taking what.
Yeah, just taking it out, reading coverages, seeing what's given, and if defenses are playing some deep to short thoughts and playing way off, which at times they are, just being smart with the ball.
Is the check down to Ken in that category too?
The check down to Ken in that category of checking, just
based on what they were given.
yeah, based on what they're given, finding them, getting the ball to them, and going from there.
What do you see other rookie tackles? Coming in, you throw 2 guys out there potentially that could be a risky thing with 2 rookies. But what have they shown?
Yeah, I think they've been super consistent throughout these first 2 weeks. They've played like true pros. We talked about that in training camp. Their approach, their demeanor, the ability to understand all the calls, know what's going on in our offensive system. So there was nothing to hold back on from a terminology or from a list of plays standpoint. And then now seeing them getting 2 weeks of good football against some pretty darn good edge rushers. They've held their own and they're playing at a high level.
What was the coaching point to Lucas on the downfield penalty?
Yeah, just every now and then, the league has made a point of emphasis as far as being really strict upon where that 2-yard variance is as far as when you can be downfield, and the bad luck for him on that one is he ends up driving his defender downfield a few steps, and then as he kind of disengages there, just losing track of where he's at on the field. So just re-emphasizing to the guys, on some of those plays where we know, hey, we can't be downfield on a double pass there, and I think it's just a good rep to learn from there, and the type of mistake that won't happen again.
So when he's engaged, you're teaching him just stop once the guy disengages.
Just playing lateral down the thing, and it just played out a little funky because he was able to get some vertical drive on that particular play, something that hasn't come up too much in terms of the way the initial part of the block started, but then having that awareness of where am I at as far as being downfield with that cushion that's so small.
If he is engaged, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah, but again, don't want to leave that in the hands of is he or isn't he right there. So once you start to feel it's starting to push, vertically downfield, got to get to play lateral right there in that instance. Which it's easy to say up here, but I know in the heat of the moment when he's battling on the line of scrimmage right there, I think that was a tough one for him.
Getting a running game going, how much of it is just needing more plays?
Yeah, I think that's where it starts right there, is getting more plays, getting more opportunities, and then it's going to go back to, and then sometimes this happened over the course of the last year or so when it gets inefficient early on. That's where the running game can suffer. So we want to keep stressing that early first and second down efficiency, where we can get more runs called, executing on third down, and really just building that inventory of plays throughout the course of the game where you do get a good amount of runs off.
The interception that DJ threw, was that as simple as just don't throw it there if it looks like it's covered like that?
Yeah, I think he's out there competing right there. We have a red zone opportunity, and DK maybe has a chance in the back there, but I think I can do a better job putting us in the right position when we're in those red zone situations right there. So I love DJ going out there and competing, and just bummed for him that it didn't work out the way it was planned. So.
What's kind of your ideal, load sharing between like Ken Walker, Rashad Penny, and what have you kind of seen out of Ken Walker these first couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think both of those guys have such a tremendous talent and skill set. Both guys may be a little bit different here as we get to learn the guys, but they're both fast and explosive, and they can do a lot of the same things, just maybe presented in a little different way. And so, the balance is just going to come throughout the course of games, throughout the flow of the games. Ken did a good job battling back from some injuries there, or from his deal early on 3 weeks ago. So he worked himself right back into there. So again, comes back to the point of getting some more plays run, getting more runs off, and like to get both of those guys involved. And there'll always be the element of one guy's playing well, or feeling out how the course of the game is going. So I don't think it's an exact scripted amount of this guy's going to get exactly this is exactly that. It's just within the flow of the game, how are those guys doing, knowing that we want to get both guys involved.
The 4 running back formation, how much did Walker practice that?
A few times throughout the week.
And was that something that was San Francisco specific, or something you've been wanting to put out for a while now?
A little more San Francisco specific in terms of that week that play came to life right there, and just knowing that he has a little history with some Wildcat stuff and some confidence. So just seeing if we could get him going with a few of those there.
I don't have the numbers, but it seems you're going more different formations, throwbacks, the tight ends offset with a pistol. Are you doing more of that this year? Is that because of personnel, or because this is really the evolution of you're trying to get the offense to in the second?
I think in my mind it's just the evolution of the personnel that we have within the offensive system, and trying to get guys in the best position, where we can move some guys around. The tight ends all 3 of those guys have done a nice job. We have the multiple running backs that we feel that can play in the game, and we got multiple receivers that can. So, there's only a certain amount of snaps throughout the course of the game, but trying to get some of those guys involved in each of those position groups more and more in the game, and maximizing their skill sets.
The interception, what was your view of that, and what happened?
On the tip to the tips pick right there, I just think that the DB did a nice job of undercutting the route and then tipped the ball up in the air. And our defense is preaching that all the time, the tips and overthrows, and that ended up being one of those tip balls that DB made a great play on it, and unfortunately really the first time for Geno so far that it was really in the harm's way like that, and wish it didn't result there, but the tips and overthrows are something we're always going to try to avoid.
And this might be kind of just we need more plays too, but getting some of the other receivers involved, other than DK and Tyler, what do you got to do?
Yeah, I think just, again, Geno doing a good job, and remember the tight ends are going to be involved in that scene as well, just like the running backs are. So knowing that, a lot of weeks DK and Tyler are going to take a lot of the attention from the defense there. So I think just doing a good job, which Geno's done so far, of getting through progressions and finding the other guys, not necessarily just because the DK or Tyler might be the primary. If they're taken away on the play, have all the confidence in the world in the ball going to any other guys, whether it's Marquise or D as he gets back going more and more, or any of the tight ends with Noah, Will, and Colby. So all those guys have shown stuff, and just really think Geno's done a good job of keep moving the ball around. But as we get more efficient as the year goes on, and like I said, can't wait to get going on Sunday to see where the ball goes.
Pete Carroll told us it's time for Geno Smith to play more freely, that he's seen enough in the offensive tackles and feel good about it. What's that look like? What does play more freely mean? What changes would there be? Without giving away.
Yeah, I think the first call in the game is going to be, and the second call no, I think, again, it goes back to the Geno having all the confidence in the world. He's been demonstrating that, and then the 2 rookie tackles have done such a good job of playing at a high level and functioning at a high level early on. It just means that, feeling good about, hey, there's not going to be plays where you work on them during the week and say, maybe we don't feel good about that yet. Just going ahead and going with what we're working on, and letting that ball rip on on game day, and trust in the run game that all the stuff that we've worked on and practiced so hard to get to, really having that full playbook open.
After he got drafted, I mean, for camp, they talked about how pass protection was kind of a weak spot for him. What have you guys seen out of him lately? Is that still a concern, or are you kind of more confident in that?
Really goes back to OTAs when he first got out here, and there's like most of the rookies, you got to figure out like what's their true understanding of pass pro, what's their willingness, how are they going to do it, and he approached that, understood the playbook right away, then was out there with Chad Morton working on pass pro right from the jump, and has done nothing but demonstrate that he has a great understanding. He's powerful, understands where hand placement and angles and leverage, and then understands all the points and the pass protection system. So have all the confidence that he can play on all downs with that.
What's D got to do to play more?
Just as he's working his way back through, I think part of it is D working his way back through, but then there's also other guys that are competing and working hard as well. So with Marquise doing a good job and the tight ends doing a nice job, just finding that balance each week, and each week it might change a little bit based on, what we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball there for which guys are getting the reps.
I know points in 6 quarters. If you had to pinpoint a particular reason, is there one reason why that's been?
Yeah, I would say the negative plays that have put us into some of those longer yardage, second and longs, some third and longs, because we've done a nice job on executing on third and manageable. I know this past game we got a couple that we got stopped on, but keeping all those things in those manageable down and distances versus really looking at the first half of the Denver game when we're staying nice and efficient, execute on third down, leads to points, leads to efficient half of football, looks like what we're striving to be.
The team's playing off of DK and Tyler more than you guys expected coming into the season?
No, I mean, I think that's been a common theme, and I think as we've seen around the league where there's been more shell coverages throughout the course of the season in all different teams, and I know Atlanta's got their variety of shell coverages. I just think it's something that's gonna be around for a while, and got to do a great job running the ball, and then like we talked about with the taking checkdowns or taking what the defense gives us, staying efficient, and that mentality of a shot called doesn't necessarily mean a shot taken, so we can still stay nice and efficient as an offense.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.